Pete, let's go to brain science and memory encoding. There's an ad for Heineken that you were working with and you've unpacked.
Yes.
I want to go through the time sequence second by second to see what is actually happening using EEG, helmet on someone's head, understanding what's firing where. Can you talk us through this asset?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one, and to me, this is the let's call it the sort of tension, if you like, between strategy and execution. Now, if you had the McKinsey guys come into Heineken and ask them what's more important, strategy or execution, a McKinsey guy would say, oh, it's all 90% strategy. That's where you need to spend your money and your time, and execution takes care of itself. This is a great example of a globally renowned advertiser, Heineken. Like, you know, talk about the resource they've got, the knowledge, the experience, the playbook they must have in terms of great marketing effectiveness. So full credit to their power and resource upstream, if you like, strategically. But I would argue that both are just as important as another, because execution can actually undo all that beautiful work and that expensive work upstream. And this is a great example of where execution is just as important. If you don't convert right at the end in an ad or in the way you communicate, and if you ignore or if you're not aware of some of the things that can be your undoing, a great brand, and for all their strategy and planning and Formula One investment and association, can be brought undone by a few things that you may not ever be aware of subconsciously. And this is a great example of that.
Beautiful. Let's cut to it now. Let's have a look at the Heineken asset.
Heaven, I'm in heaven.
They actually made a good start. Tension rises on the track.
I can hardly
Right now they are all there. They are all very close. Up such a tight space for a pass. But he makes it.
Yes. Yes. When we're together, down
Max Verstappen wins. The crowd is going crazy.
cheek to cheek.
Beautiful. Do we have the time series version of this with the Neuro
next.
Insights? Let's have a look at the time series. So talk to us, Pete. What are we seeing here?
So we're looking at memory encoding here, left brain red, right brain blue. We're looking at a scale of 0 to 1. You want to be at around about 0.7 in terms of the strength of its commitment to memory. So this is memory encoding, what's going in. There's a peak right there. And both lines are important. And of course, the moments in an ad that are most important are branding. There's the classic final branding scene there. As you can see, that's a typical ad in terms of the highs and lows. There's nothing ever stays high for more than a split second, which is why I'm so big on moments in time. But if we just pull back out of that for a moment, there's a lot going on in that ad. That ad is a real roller coaster. Now, fortunately, again, rule number one, how do we get branding away? Now, fortunately for a beer, as opposed to, or maybe not opposed to an airline, you can have a well-branded aeroplane. But as opposed to, say, superannuation, which I know we've discussed earlier, a service that's harder to physically brand.
Yeah.
So a beer brand's got a huge advantage in just that. You can have celebratory moments where there's a bottle of Heineken. They've tried very hard to A, increase their association with Formula One, and B, brand wherever they can through that ad. So that's the macro playbook. But here's the point. That ad falls into one of these categories of creepy ad effect. And if I just step back out of the beer category, think of how many ads or creatives actually show people using a device. A phone, for example, or an app on a phone. Like banks do it, fast food does it. It's so common, it's not funny. That's what I'm talking about. It's the creepy ad effect. The subconscious response to an ad that kind of creeps behind you and shows a consumer using a mobile phone to do anything they want to do. Now,
would you prefer a newspaper?
Well, no, not necessarily, although that would be far more obvious because it just would, but actually it would probably be the same effect, to be honest. So, if you were peering over someone's shoulder, what we don't realise happens is that the audience actually retreats out of that, and of course a memory falls. Now, you probably say to me, well, big deal, why is that important? Well, those scenes that use the mobile phone streaming the Formula One are highly brandable scenes, and you'll see how Heineken have used those scenes to brand very, very strongly Heineken and also communicate their association with Formula One. And yet they don't work. The consumer backs right out of it, and that's the creepy ad effect.
So what I love about what you do is it measures the subconscious, and it genuinely measures the subconscious. It's not survey, it's not using the conscious mind for insight, which there's a lot of other platforms that claim to be neuro do. Yours is genuinely measuring brain activity.
That's right.
I'd love to go to a couple of slides and look at the creepy ad effect, which is mobile in someone's hand over someone's shoulder. It's the perspectives that people or creative directors love, but they don't understand the impact that has on subconscious behaviour.
You're right, JR. That's exactly what we're talking about here. The first reveal of the guy streaming Formula One with Heineken plastered all the way through. That's it's a beautifully branded scene, and it builds their association with Formula One. If you were a creative, you'd think absolutely 10 out of 10 for that. We're branding early, we're getting in early, we're colouring the whole sequence with Heineken. What could go wrong? Well, this is where the ad goes horribly wrong. The creepy ad effect, we're peering over someone's shoulder to what you could argue, like you and your phone and what you do on your phone is, at times a highly personal activity.
I love that shot. It's not. I'm like, what are they looking at? I love looking at people's phones on the tram.
Well, you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be, Marcus, because and this. I think this is fundamental human psychology playing out before our very eyes, and you don't know that it's going on. Now, if you think about fortunately, as I was saying earlier, like you've got a beer brand, and you can use the physical product, and of course it brands very well at the end, but there's no guarantee that using that device earlier, and in fact there's a guarantee it will not work to build that association branding.
You've run this for thousands of different ads. Is this a consistent theme you see with the creepy ad effect when you're peering over someone's shoulder, mobile device in hand, or is this an anomaly?
It's scarily common. Now, there are factors which make it worse to a degree or slightly better, but it's a very, very common thing. And the point that we're making here is that it's a subconscious response that you simply cannot ask a consumer about. There's no way that if I ask you guys, have a look at this ad, actually you'd probably say, as you said earlier, Marcus, I love that scene. It's a really creatively integrated scene between streaming F1 and Heineken plastered all over it. Like, great, ticks all the boxes.
It makes sense.
It tells me it's a Heineken ad right from the start. How could I go wrong? Well, that's where the ad takes a real departure. And the point is, it's very obvious in the Heineken ad. The bigger question is, and the bigger point is, how many commercials use that same effect? Anyone who wants to sell an app uses that effect. It's the scary peering over your shoulder moment. You've got to be so careful.
So we've got one scene there. Is there any other stills or moments that we can review?
There's a second scene, which is also a few seconds into the ad, about 10 to 12 seconds, where the kid is streaming F1 as well with all his mates. It's so exactly that there. So and now we're looking at engagement and emotional intensity. It's playing out at all levels.
So it's not just memory, you're looking at engagement and emotional intensity. Is there any other freeze frames here, Pete, that we can line up?
They're the main two. They're the main two because they're the streaming scenes that happen earlier in the ad. Of course, where the ad does very, very well is the final branding scene. The point is, if you didn't have a strong final branding scene like that, that ad would fall into the category of great ad, but who's it for? It's probably a beer, and I don't know who the beer is. And so many ads do that, which is the number one killer of ad effectiveness, because what you're looking at there is memory encoding. An ad must have high levels of memory, at minimum the point of branding, and then you work back to messaging and associations you want to build and everything else that goes into great communication. So a very, very dangerous executional part, which is why I said, for all of the strategy and the planning and the money that's gone into their association in Formula One, to think that a humble little scene peering over your shoulder at a mobile could undo that investment is horrifying to me.
It's an amazing insight, because I would never have picked that up. And I wonder if the camera angle changes and it looks like it's first person, as in you're using it.
Yep.
I wonder if we could test that again.
Yes,
and see what happens.
and that would change. That would change the context of that moment significantly, as well. And there's many things that we advise our clients to do that can still use an app, because that's part of the brief. Like, I've got to communicate the fact that this app for my bank helps you save and helps you get to where you want to go quicker and smarter. So, but there are other ways to ensure that doesn't happen and doesn't kill your ad. But if you left it to that moment, peering over your shoulder, there are techniques that you can use to back out of the danger. Well, I'd have to charge you a lot of money to tell you what they are, which I'm happy to do if I.
You're pretty good at that. So that's the creepy ad effect of observing a phone over someone's shoulder or similar, which is quite well leveraged in market. There's a lot of ads that
extensively
use this.
used. Yeah.
What an insight. Thank you, Pete, to understand the negative impact that has on memory encoding and engagement in terms of emotional withdrawal as well.